No. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Transition Before Transaction. I'm Wendy Dickinson with Ascend to Sell.
And I'm Jay Cowan with Business Owner Exit Strategies.
We're so glad that you're here with us today. We're going to talk about partnerships and doing your due diligence. I mean, that partnership alignment before they sign anything.
Well, raise your hand if there's light coming off my head that's not giving me a good view of this. Nobody raised their hand. Okay, we'll continue.
So we're good.
So where were we?
Yes. So we're talking about what we're partnerships,
and
then how partnerships sometimes don't go very well. And so, hey, do you guys know that up to 70% of partnerships fail? Did you know that?
I did not, but it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, no, you've got a bunch of stories about that for sure.
Do. Anytime we have more than one human involved, there's all types of opportunities for conflict.
Yeah, we're super complicated beings, aren't we?
Yes. You don't have to do anything more the rest of your life. You focus on that. You'll have no time for anything else.
Yeah, and if you happen to be an advisor where you have clients who have partnerships, we think that you'll find this helpful as well.
Well, I'd be happy to share a story.
Oh, please
about
do.
This. Okay.
Absolutely.
So I've got many stories. So in my really in my very first partnership, this was a couple of guys that I had worked with in some shape or form for about close to 15 years, and we were both financial advisors, if you will, benefits people.
Okay.
And we thought there was a lot of good opportunities, skill sets that would merge quite nicely. And we figured, well, we worked together for a while. Why not make it a little more official and have an organization? So we decided to get together, and so all was well. We didn't do a whole lot of due diligence, other than, well, I know them, I know their spouses, we like each other, we like their spouses and so forth. And that ought to be good enough.
Do any of you recognize yourselves in this?
Yes. So,
or your clients?
And that's a lot of that happens. So what I didn't know was, in one example, I didn't know that the oldest partner had a son. Well, I knew he had a son, but I didn't know that his main goal was for his son to one day be involved, and that we can help train his son, help mentor his son, and so that one day he can take over, his son can take over his ownership. Well, I knew him okay, but that was a totally different story. There was never any conversation about that. I'm more than happy to help somebody, but that sort of immediately took, from my standpoint, made me think, well, how much of this ball that you're going to keep an eye on? And also realize that he and his son didn't get along real well when it came to working
my
together.
Goodness. That's an important piece of information.
So there's a lot of refereeing going on and shouting, things of that nature. So also found that probably more important than anything, we shared in our duties, and we shared in our expenses, but we didn't share in our compensation. That's another thing which we sort of talked about, but there was nothing really outlined in our agreement, which we did have later. And so,
how much later did you have an agreement?
Probably a year after.
Okay. Another important aspect of due diligence.
And so, it's, well, why do we need an agreement? We all understand what we're trying to do. It's sort of like saying being married for a while and then saying, I want a prenup.
Right.
So that turned into be a critical aspect. Compensation and how that's to be allocated is crucial, and can be one of, just like a marriage, it can be one of the biggest reasons for failure for that unit to work to last together. And so I was the one who brought in the majority of the business, which I was happy to share, but when it came to somebody else obtaining some business, they didn't want to share with the rest of the children.
Okay.
So after a while, I realized, who am I really doing this for? And then some other things, like I wanted to change how we were working, and just to keep it simple. And the two of them didn't want to change. And after working together with them for a handful of years, I realized I'll never get that changed, and I can't get anything else changed. So I decided to split without getting any of the value that I'd created. But it was important that I just distance myself to make it happen.
So how did you feel about that?
Well, it was emotionally and financially devastating.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Oh gosh, Jay, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and it's not something I wish on anybody. And having learned, going through that experience, I really wanted to. I felt there was a good idea that there'd be some people who needed somebody who's got that kind of experience that can help get them through the process. No, I didn't go to school for that. It just turned out to be, well, the school of hard knocks.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
So that was a tough thing. And also, when you want to wind up a deal, eventually it always goes back to what's in the document or what isn't in the document, and cost a little money to kind of somewhat legalities, but we eventually got through that. So you really want to look long and hard about the people. It's not because you're not trying to be trustworthy, but as Ronald Reagan once said, trust but verify.
Yes.
You know, we never really went through the process of saying, well, what are we trying to do here? What is our goal? It was just, well, we like working with each other, and we should all be doing better, making money together, and we'll be right there, and we'll be able to spend more time and get things done more effectively. And that was only a very surface, a half inch below the surface of where we should have been.
So I think there's some takeaways from that story. And I have to tell you that the research proves that a number of partnerships that do fail struggle with issues that Jay has shared with us. So there are the risks with personal relationships. There is at times an unequal commitment between partners. So I think that's one of the things that you hit on as well. I mean, who's bringing in the business, and then how is the compensation divided accordingly? And then also, how does each person measure success? I mean, again, some people might measure compensation, but depending on where you are in the business, somebody else might measure just how many clients or how many hours or weeks are they able to take vacation. I mean, who knows what success means to different people.
Can I bring another example?
Yeah,
of that?
you sure can.
And this was my second go around with another partner. I just love having partners.
Some partnerships work out.
Yeah, I'm still waiting. So far, the only one that's worked out is the one I've had for 38 years.
Yes,
my wife.
yes.
This was also interesting in terms of how you define success. And my partner, who happened to be working, whose husband was a very successful person, made pretty good money for them. She didn't really need to work.
Okay.
For her, it was more about, the satisfaction you get of having a business and so forth, which I got no problems with.
Maybe also a little identity there.
Yes, very much so. That was definitely true. I didn't, again, have so much of a problem with it, but when push comes to shove, I was the sole breadwinner in my family.
Yeah.
And this needed to be successful, i.e. needed to generate income and manage expenses. And for my partner, it was just about having the business pay enough to stay in business. She really got more out of the idea of I'm a business owner.
Yeah.
And I'm this and I'm that, all the things you get as an owner.
Yeah.
And when we would continue to add employees, it was really about, well, the business can afford it. And I'm like, well, how about me? I don't think we need this many. So that became an issue.
Jay, that's a great example.
Well, you reminded me of it, that can be a real issue again.
So I'm going to also, as a result of your sharing that story, bring up a lack of shared values, because there's value, monetary value, but there are also other kinds of values, right? I mean,
how you want to, how you believe in how you treat employees.
Yes.
How you treat vendors who are trying to support you.
Right.
We all say we treat our clients better than anybody.
Yes.
But when you witness how somebody is willing to treat a subordinate or even treat an equal person.
Yeah, that's true too.
There is, that's extremely important. And to my hard-headedness, people before this partnership, the second partnership came around, I had people telling me, having worked with her, I'm not sure, you need to look into this further. And I said, oh no, I know, I think you misunderstand this person. They're really not like you say.
Yeah.
So I had the blinders on until I found out for myself, and I
So that leads us to another one, personality clashes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes personalities just don't gel, and they might on a superficial level, but then when you're working with someone every day and your livelihood depends on that.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
Yes.
that's really super scary.
Well, again, in our particular situation, we got along as long as it wasn't about how we were treating employees and how we were treating supporting vendors, and so if we got around from that, we seemed to be a good match, and on paper we were a good match.
Mm-hmm.
But again, over time, it got to be I was bringing in 75% of the revenue, and she was in charge of managing the relationships. And eventually, I found that those relationships became hers and not mine, and I was no longer contributing. So the values of it really was an issue of how you treat people. And the thing that I at least had from my prior client relationship and partnerships was we treated people as well as we could. We treated each other's spouses well. We included spouses in things going on. In my case, spouses were not important. Spouses shouldn't be involved in anything. That was not my value system.
Yeah. Well, and here's another one, and you haven't necessarily mentioned this, but that's the issue of ethics. And I do think that sometimes our values are also expressed in our ethics, our ethical code.
Absolutely.
So, that would be another aspect of partnership due diligence that needs to be explored.
Like bringing a family member on payroll and not mentioning it to your partners.
Yeah, that would
That's
be a big one, I think.
Issue. Or not taking responsibility for something that happened for a client, and instead of taking ownership of that problem, putting it on the vendor, and they're the ones who created the problem.
Yes.
I'll fix it.
Yes.
You could get away with that for a little while, but it really it's a problem. And,
yes.
What I learned was that sometimes the people that are closest to you, even in business, are the ones that can do you in.
Okay,
easiest.
That's a great point. And I'll tell you, just, with my background as a therapist, I can tell you that looking at a family system, with looking at family systems, I mean, so many of our adult patterns of behavior are born in our families of origin. And sometimes those things serve us well, but sometimes they don't.
Yes.
And I have to say that oftentimes the team or the members of a particular business become like a family.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, and so when we carry those patterns of behaviors, if they happen to be dysfunctional into our business, that can be a real problem, not only for ourselves and the people that work for us, but also our partners.
And many people tend to hide their true natures about things. Many times it's unintentional, but oftentimes it can be very intentional. And the more stress and pressure there is, the more those are likely to come out.
Well, and I'll tell you, just my observation again, is that a lot of times people carry dysfunctions into their current lives, their adult lives, because they don't have the tools to do things differently, and they don't know what to do. And so then if no one calls them on it, or if it gets too scary, or if it feels too threatening to then be their authentic self in that relationship, then they leave, because it's easier to start all over again and be able to push that dysfunction down than it is to put it out on the table and say, look, partner, I've got this.
Yes, that's very difficult to do. It sounds like naturally you would want to get it out there, but in reality, it's difficult to do. When my wife notices that I'm not being communicative with her, she wants to find out what's the problem. And I, of course, push back and say there is no problem because, well, it's a guy thing. We go into our cave and we don't want anybody to bother us.
I think it's a person thing.
Well, I think more so, and I'll defer to you, more so it seems with men than women, but
I think
in any case, it's kind of a natural thing to say, I think I can fix this if I can just have enough time alone, which is actually the worst thing
yes,
that you
it
can
is.
do.
Well, and I want to tell you, that's actually a neurological thing. So we
Are you saying I got to fix this somehow?
No, but I do think that we as humans are hardwired to want to hide our vulnerabilities.
Yes.
It's hard to be not only wrong, but to not know how to fix something about yourself. And so that's where having a coach or, to be involved in a partnership due diligence discussion can be really helpful.
And having gone through that as well, at least from my last partnership, when things got to the point where we didn't want to be in the room, in the office at the same time, we did reach out to someone who could help, who was a counselor of partnerships that are in trouble. And so, surprisingly, my partner was equal to wanting to do something about that.
Good.
And we spent some time with this person, and in the end, after going quite deep in our personalities and history, he advocated that we should go our separate ways. So I'm a big believer in bringing in outside help who don't have an axe to grind, who don't have a dog in this fight, if you will, to try to help us talk to each other. And it doesn't mean, in my particular case, it didn't end up in good news for my partner in that somebody says you should keep working together because she wanted to and I didn't. But we could have gone a whole lot years with trying to limp through that, and it would have just been worse. It doesn't mean you're weak. It just really means, like a coach like you are, even Tiger Woods used to coach. As great as he was, not so much now, but as great as he was, he would have somebody come in and look at his swing and say, hey, this is what you're doing. And the great players have a coach. The great people who are really successful business people have some type of coach to help them with, whether it be strategy or just having a hard time dealing with this employee or
in a life event that impacts someone's ability to show up as their whole selves in their partnership.
Absolutely.
Hey, we're about halfway through, so why don't we go ahead and provide our listeners with some suggestions about the type of script to have if they're exploring creating a partnership with somebody. Oh, and by the way, I've already posted a document that you all are welcome to use to frame this conversation. It's called Strategic Plan for Business Relationships, Tool Number 1, Awareness. Because I believe the first place to start is expanding your own self-awareness.
Oh, very much so. I mean, the tendency we have is to fix the other person.
Yes. And what we want to do is to really take a look at what our own strengths and weaknesses, what the opportunities that we offer someone else if we're going to enter into a partnership. And going with the SWOT analysis still, threats, well, I'm going to say instead of threats, why don't we use the term blind spots, or what are our gaps in knowledge? There are a lot of things that I don't know about business ownership. What my skill set is working with someone on their relationships, working with someone as far as their visioning and their goal setting, accountability. So, and an advisor like you would offer different people the opportunity to take a look at what are the foundations of their partnership. What are some of the insurance needs? What are some of the legal needs that they may have? So different advisors and different business owners will have different needs and different people that they're going to want to invite to the conversation. But we recommend you start with yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, the tendency is if somebody does a SWOT analysis, I couldn't tell you percentage-wise, but many businesses feel that's very important to go through for their business, which I wholeheartedly agree. But so few people, and I was one of those people, didn't do it for themselves.
Yeah.
And I can think about a number of things, a number of potholes that I could have missed, a lot of things that I could have done differently had all of us had gone through that self-analysis. And, it's all about just trying to, there's something significantly troubling or there's an issue, the better and the sooner you find out, the better it's going to be.
Exactly.
And hopefully the easier it'll be to fix it.
I had the opportunity to speak to a partner, a guy that had a couple of businesses with a partner, and what he and his partner did was a self-awareness assessment like we're discussing. And yet they also took a look at comparing what each had to offer the other, and then what roles they would be able to fill within their new business, as well as where the gaps were, who else they needed to bring in to fill those gaps. And then they looked at setting up an actual process for disagreement. Now, they had to fine tune that as they went along, but they at least had a place to start.
Exactly right. That's, when you're starting from scratch and you've got no knowledge of the questions to ask, yourself or the other person, it's a really tough thing to do. But if you can have an outline, if you will, of what you should be thinking about and going through, you're miles ahead, truly. I was working with a gentleman who had a business and he was starting, and he had someone else that he wanted to be in partnerships with. So he asked to see me. The other partner soon-to-be partner wasn't available yet. But I commend him on the fact that he was trying to go through this ahead of time. And he told me how this gentleman perceived working in this business and how he was going to do it. And I saw a great deal of inequality going here. And
red flag.
Yeah, absolutely. And because they were such good friends, we sort of had to address it in a way that wouldn't cause a lot of heartache and heartburn about it.
Yeah.
But it was clear once we put it down on a piece of paper, and he kept seeing the mounting positives and whatever on his side and the negatives on the other side. He goes, oh, this is not so good. And when he went back to his person he was talking to and said, I'm like, can you really commit to this? You're not willing to do this full time, and I am. At what point are you going to come in with me, and do you expect the full treatment in terms of revenue sharing?
Expectations, discussion of expectations.
And then ultimately, it came out that the other gentleman would become an employee one day, not a partner.
Okay.
But once he got where he needed to be personally, financially, he wanted to come in as an employee, and then discuss at some point whether or not he would be partner material.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, because a lot of people really don't appreciate or understand what it is owning a business, and then when getting into it, realizing, gee, this is going to take more hours than I was willing to spend.
Yes.
Or, and whatever else. And so it's just like you have to say, hey, look, it'll be okay if we trust each other enough to do what we're going to try to agree to do here. But they may decide, I should never. No, I'm glad I wasn't a partner. I had no appreciation and idea of the responsibility that was involved with that. I was just in love with the idea of being a
partner.
And a lot of people, that's unfortunately what happens. They love the idea, but they only look at what they think are the highs, and they never appreciate what the lows might be.
Yeah. Okay, I also have to bring to your attention that if you're considering a partnership with a family member or a spouse, well, that's even more important to have this conversation and to really wholeheartedly, to the best of your ability, contribute to this discussion of due diligence. And then to exchange that information with your prospective partner. And as an advisor, if you're an advisor and you're listening to this, you know how important it is, but you also understand how difficult the conversation is to have.
I think the partnerships that exist when it's with family, whether it's a spouse or sibling, children, those that can exist successfully are rare animals, and they are just fantastic because they've figured it out. The tendency when you know somebody so well that you grew with and been married to, whatever it is, you know each other's hot buttons that would never be a hot button with an unrelated person.
Yeah.
And those can tend to come up, again, perhaps unresolved issues.
Yes.
You've really got to, you've really got to look at that very hard and analyze. Can we deal with things when they don't go well?
Yes.
We should agree on being able to take a time out and not let it affect our personal relationship.
Yes.
There's a client I was working with that 3 women had inherited their business from their dad, and they were all equal partners. And again, they were bringing different things to the table, but also how they're going to make decisions and how much work they're really to be involved in. After working together as partners for 5 years, they didn't even want to see each other for Thanksgiving and other holidays. It really become an unfortunate
That's heartbreaking
situation. And it really came down to, you have a real financial challenges. Nobody here wants to really be here another 10 years, maybe, in fact, even another 5 years. So let's talk about, what's worse. Is it feeling like you've lost the legacy if you decide you need to go our separate ways with this business, sell the business, or is it more important to keep doing it and really risk never being able to talk to each other again? And in the end, they recognize we would rather sell the business than damage our relationships anymore.
And I think I want to encourage all of you, because this is another example that Jay's just shared with us on how important it is to get the help that you need, the support that you need when you face a difficulty or an obstacle that you don't feel equipped to navigate on your own. In that situation of the 3 women who were sisters and also business owners, how unfortunate that they had to get to the point where they did not want to share family time together. So I think it's an example of what can happen, a cautionary tale, if you will. It's also a hell of a shame, because there are a lot of people out there that can be value added in helping us all navigate situations that we don't feel equal to the task of navigating on our own.
Well, another way of putting this is, let's create a common enemy that we can unite against so that we can get through this. So if they wanted to make me the bad guy, that was okay. They were paying me to tell them the stuff they didn't want to hear.
Boy, speaking of dysfunction in a family system, that is a great example too.
So, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
They were able to talk to me independently rather than as a group at first, so really get it all out there. And then I was, without betraying any personal issues and confidences,
you were
help
able
them work through that. Something I wasn't really used to, frankly. That would have been much better.
I was going to say, that would have been a
much
time
better
for you to call me.
for you. Which is why you and I are trying to work together now.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, but in that particular case, I was able to say it in a way without pointing fingers at, hey, these are the challenges, these are the feelings, and bottom line, all you guys really want to make this work in one way, shape, or form. And so, because you all value each other, and you're all upset and concerned that your relationship is really degraded.
Yeah.
Being able to just say something like that made a huge difference.
So let's spend our last 2 minutes. I'd like to give people the actual script. Sound good?
Absolutely. Yeah,
and then we'll then honor your time and sign off. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to create that thumbnail sketch of yourself and the other person. Have them create their own. Then exchange them. Okay, exchange the two.
Beautiful.
All right. Have some time alone to consider what each brings to the table. Then you want to go in and look at that other person as well as your own about where are the disconnects? Where are the complementary skills? How are your different values expressed? And what's the ideal? So then you want to take a look at what will your role be in the organization and what will your partner's role be in the organization.
Also very important.
Right?
Yeah.
And then look at those thumbnail sketches side by side and then figure out what each person brings. And then again, discuss how are you going to navigate differences of opinion? How are you going to handle when an unexpected opportunity comes up and one person says, no, don't hire more people, and the other person says, yes, hire more. So go ahead and speak about those contingencies or possible scenarios that could come up during your partnership.
Absolutely.
And then really take some time and spend some time looking at not only what your values are, but also what's the vision. And does that vision align with not only your own values, but your partner's values?
Absolutely. And
then how will you grow that business? How will you bring that vision to life? What's each person's role in that? And then, what do you need to succeed? Who do you need to succeed? And if the two of you can work through those things, really get those issues out on the table, then you have the opportunity to be aligned as far as your mission is concerned, your purpose, and as your company grows, you can then share that with great clarity with the people that join your team.
It's amazing what gets left out of an agreement, and how you make decisions, how you share compensation or split compensation, how you decide who's going to be the deciding vote and all that. Those are generally left out.
So do you feel like people ought to really set aside time, not only in the beginning, but once the partnership is formed, like once a year or once every 6 months? I mean, what do you recommend?
I think an annually if possible, but it's certainly every 2 years.
Okay.
Things change.
Yeah.
And
value of business changes.
Value of business changes. Right. And you can't be afraid to take a look at it, wondering if something's going to come up that you don't want to think, you don't want to talk about it, just create an argument.
Right.
And we've talked a lot about this particular issue, which I think is so important, that tends to get neglected. The things that I often end up spending time on with people is also what are the triggering events that can occur that can affect how a business is going to continue. And that's a little easier in some ways, but if
less emotionally charged, maybe not easier.
So if a shareholder, partner, what happens in the death of that particular person?
Right.
Who's going to get those shares? They don't automatically come to the partner. They go to the family. And so you've got to be able to address those as well, and having a method to value your business every year or so you can keep track of what's that value to that member. Those can kill a business too, because if it's not done right, you could finally have a very viable business in trouble because there was the agreement, or if they even had one, the agreement didn't address who's going to buy the share of a deceased partner's.
Oh yeah.
And unless you really want to be in business with your partner's spouse or child or the attorney for the estate, those got to be addressed. What happens in the event of a disability? What happens in a personal bankruptcy?
Yeah.
What happens in a divorce? What happens if your partner, like not, ends up in jail? I mean, it's almost too much to think about, but those should be also addressed, what I call triggering events. These kind of things that can be catastrophic to a business.
Yeah. And I know we're at the end, but if someone wants to explore this issue more with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Oh, don't call me. I'm absolutely not interested.
Oh, you are.
You can call me, certainly, 804-726-6011. You can email me at jayj at boesva. It's my email address.
Okay.
Or go to my website, www.boesva.com.
Awesome.
Simple enough. Or call you.
Yeah.
And then later, if I need it, she'll call me.
Reach out to me. You can private message me on Facebook, or you can call me at 804-372-7575. Jay and I have been at Coal Mine Coffee today at 117 Browns Way Road in Midlothian, Virginia. And this is one of our favorite places. As you can tell, it's a bustling place in the afternoon. And we hope that you'll stop by Coal Mine Coffee sometime, and we hope you have a good rest of the day. Next week, we'll be back, same time, again on Thursday at 2 o'clock. And we're going to talk about, hold on, family relationships, the right kid for the job.
More fun for me.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Remember, it's a great day to be alive.
Bye.
That was a really